From Mencari Newsroom at redmencari.com.
Hello everyone, I'm Miko Santos and this is today's rundown. In our lead stories, political leaders clash over energy policies as the Prime Minister attacked nuclear plan. The coalition announces a massive defense spending boost, and international relations came under scrutiny as Australia participated in military exercise near Taiwan. Stay with us for the latest news from Australia and around the globe. The Prime Minister has attacked opposition nuclear energy plants during a visit to a battery installation facility in Western Australia. Speaking at a renewable energy site in Cooley, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese criticized opposition leader Peter Dutton for avoiding visit to proposed nuclear reactor locations.
And what will not happen here, of course, is a nuclear power station. We have Mr Dutton, who refuses to visit this site, but he refuses to visit any of the sites. Any of the 7 sites, he hasn't been near any of them. And you would think that there was radiation coming from these sites because he just won't come and won't talk about what his plans actually are.
The Prime Minister described the battery facility as an example of Australia's energy transformation in action, pointing to renewable projects as more viable alternative to nuclear power. Meanwhile, opposition has pledged to increase defense spending by $21 billion over the next 5 years, aiming to reach 2.5% of GDP. Opposition leader Peter Dutton announced the plan in Perth alongside Shadow Minister for Defence Andrew Hastie.
Australia has an important role to play on the global stage and in our own region, but most importantly, a good Australian government will always invest into keeping us safe. We made an announcement only a few days ago of $750 million into keeping Australians safe in their homes and in their suburbs, in their towns and in their communities. And today we make a very significant announcement of over $20 billion to defence over the course of the next 5 years.
The announcement comes amid concern about regional security, with the coalition positioning itself as a stronger on defence compared to Labor.
The single most important task for the Australian government is to keep the Australian people safe. It's an incredibly important task, and the Albanese government is failing at it. The Prime Minister has stood up multiple times over the last 3 years and said that we are facing the most dangerous strategic circumstances since the end of the Second World War. And he's right, of course. We've seen the rise of authoritarian powers, we've seen war in Ukraine, we've seen war in the Middle East, we've seen Hamas, Hezbollah and the Houthis create all sorts of strategic disorder which affects our important lines of trade. And we are growing weaker under this Labor government. In fact, under Labor we've seen $80 billion worth of cuts, delays and reprioritisations to the Defence Force.
Deputy Prime Minister and Defence Minister Richard Marles dismissed the announcement as a lacking substance.
Well, firstly, Sarah, this is no commitment. This is nothing other than a number in a press release. There is no explanation of how the money is going to be raised. There is no explanation of how the money is going to be spent. What is absolutely astounding here is that the Leader of the Opposition and the Shadow Minister for Defence, having had 3 years to work up this policy, announcing it just 10 days out from Election Day, announce a figure of $21 billion, and they do not nominate a single military capability that this is going to go towards. There's been no strategic thinking, no strategic direction, no strategic purpose. At the end of the day, this is just a number in a press release. There's no explanation of how they imagine getting this money out the door so that they would actually spend it in the next 5 years. This is not defence policy. This is a defence debacle. And what it evidences is an opposition who have simply been lazy in respect of defence and have not done the work in terms of coming up with a credible, coherent contribution to our strategic debate.
Defence expert Jennifer Parker from Australian National University National Security College described the spending increase as incredibly positive, but noted the lack of details regarding the specific capabilities in an interview at the ABC News Australia.
Well, I think any discussion around increasing defence spending is incredibly positive. Of course, we don't know what the increase is going to be spent on. So all we've heard from the opposition today is that by the end of this decade, we'll be at about 2.5% of GDP. Under the current government's program, we'll be at about 2.26% of GDP, and then within 10 years, the opposition plans to get to 3% of GDP. And under the current trajectory from the current government, we'd be at about 2.33%. So we know it's more money for defence, and I think that is great. When we think about current defence spending, we're at about 2.03% of GDP. We say we're in our most significant strategic time since World War II, but we are spending less as a percentage of the economy than we were during the Cold War.
Meanwhile, the International Monetary Fund has cut Australia's economic growth forecast for 2025 to 1.6%, down from its previous projection of 2.1%. The downgrade comes amid concern over the impact of tariff from US President Donald Trump, which the IMF says will significantly slow economic growth across the globe. Papua New Guinea only cardinal is preparing to join the Papal Conclave for the first time. Cardinal John Rubat will travel to the Vatican this week to meet the other cardinals from around the world. Over 130 cardinals will gather in the Vatican to determine who will be the next head of the Catholic Church. The outcome will be eagerly awaited in PNG, as the next pontiff will oversee the canonization of nation first saint Peter Turut, a process set in motion by Pope Francis shortly before his death. A strong earthquake with a magnitude 6.2 has shaken Istanbul on Wednesday local time, Turkey Disaster and Emergency Management Presidency says. The earthquake had a magnitude of 6.2 at a shallow depth of 10 kilometers, according to the United States Geological Survey. Its epicenter was some 40 kilometers southwest of Istanbul in the Sea of Marmara. It was followed by several aftershocks, including one measuring 5.3, with the AFAD urging residents to stay away from the building. That's wrap up today's rundown. For more in-depth coverage and analysis of these stories and more, visit readmencari.com. Subscribe to our daily newsletter for the latest news delivered straight to your inbox. We're also available on all podcasting platforms. Search for Today's Rundown wherever you get your podcasts. Your support helps us continue to bring your independent, quality journalism. Thanks for listening. I'm Miko Santos, and this is Today's Rundown.
Subscribe to Mencari for news with authentic Gen X perspective, cutting through the noise with zero fluff. Available now across all podcast platforms. News without the noise, perspective without the panic.